Avril, I'm like so excited that you could join the show today. Super excited to speak with you. Obviously we've spoken in the past, and
Yeah,
it's great to kind of catch up. How are you doing?
I'm
In this time.
good. I'm so good. First of all, thank you so much for having me back. I always love talking to you, and I love your videos. And any of my girlfriends who see your videos on my phone or anything, they're like, "Oh my god, he's so cute." I'm like, "Yep, he is, and he's got a great message. So why don't you listen to that?" But yeah,
All
I'm
right.
doing well. I remember like we spoke back, I think in the spring, and things were not looking good in the wedding industry, and they're still not. But for me, the role that I'm in, I'm the last vendor standing. So when
Mm.
everybody's like had to scale down their weddings and they've gotten rid of their caterer and they've gotten rid of the photographer, all the other things they've gotten rid of, they still need me. So I have actually had a record year. I've done more weddings
Wow.
already this year than I did last year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And next year I have even more weddings booked. And I know why. I know exactly why that is. It's that in the spring, when everyone went silent, everyone gave up, they closed their doors, they're like, oh well, I can't work, I'm not going to do anything. I just carried on. I didn't stop my social media, I didn't stop blogging, I didn't stop anything. So I kept going, and people, so I, first of all, I was the only one out there still promoting weddings.
There you go.
But but I was also promoting that I was helping couples solve their problems, and I kept giving people hope, I kept being available, and so that has just built into an incredible amount of weddings this year. I think I've done 45 already this year, and I
Wow.
still have more. Yeah, yeah, who would have
I was
thought
gonna
that
say
45
that.
couples, yeah, would get married?
I was gonna
So
say that because
it's,
like I keep seeing photo after photo, and every time it's a different couple on your social. So that's
yeah,
incredible.
and that's not even all of them. So yeah, there's more to come. And I just, I treated my business as though nothing was wrong. And I mean, of course I knew
Mm.
things were wrong, but I acted as though nothing was wrong, and I just kept showing up every day, even when I was struggling, and I made my struggles known to my people.
I remember that.
And it just grew and grew and grew, and I think that's what people needed. They needed someone to say it's going to be okay,
And
we
correct
will
me if
get
I'm
through
wrong.
this.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When you put out that post, just being real transparent about what you were going through, did
Yeah,
you not receive like the greatest response you've ever received on a post ever?
it was so like people resonated with that, people really connected with that. And if you go back, I think it's back the end of March, maybe beginning of April, in my
Hmm.
feed, and it's me sitting in my car, kind of like, and for anybody who's looking for that post, but there were hundreds of comments on it, and people really felt that. And I think that people really appreciated that someone was saying it, like saying, you know what, I'm getting up every day, I'm getting dressed every day, I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do, but this is hard, and this is affecting my mental health, and this is affecting how I approach my work. But from that, the support that I got in that people were cheering so much for me from that post, that kept me
Wow.
going. And everything just kept building from there. And then couples were getting in touch wanting me to help them plan their mini weddings. And because I'm so connected with so many vendors, it was easy for me, like, in an afternoon I could have an entire wedding planned. So they
Wow.
really loved that and how simple I made it. And I was like, here's your total, I will take care of everything else. So yeah, they were jumping on that.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. And I love how, like, this is a really good example to me of somebody who reached out, leveraged social media in throughout the whole like noise and negativity. Like a great example of yourself who you reached out on social media and the response that you got back was just so warm and loving, full of support. I try to remind people that there is a lot of good in social media. A lot of people like to demonize the platform, but we forget that it's the people that use the platform. Because without people, social media wouldn't be social. Therefore, we wouldn't even call it social media. So
Right.
I love how you've reached out, and it's just a good example and good reminder, I think, to people that you can do that and there can be a positive response. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because they're so
Yeah.
afraid of opinions of others and what they're going to think. But I
Yeah.
just love that you shared that, because I think that is possible for people. And I think that that's a response that people should expect when they are transparent.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Like when you come out there and you say, I am hurting, your people should, surround you with love and say, oh my gosh, like, thank you for sharing that. What can we do? How can we help? And for a lot of people, it was just like, hey, you got this. You're doing great. You know what I mean? Like all these things that sort of kept me going because, as I was watching the entire wedding industry implode, and like, don't get me wrong, I did well, like I said, because I'm the last vendor standing. There are a lot of businesses that aren't coming back, and it's a shame. There are a lot of places that had to close their doors because they had brick and mortar and they could not survive this year. So I am
Yeah.
very fortunate and very lucky. And as you said, with social, like, people forget the social part of social media and those relationships and the connections that we made. I love social media, and people are like, it's awful, people just compare themselves to others, and I'm like, well, then just don't do that. Like, connect with people and have conversations. And so much of my business, most of my business, comes from social media and referrals from people within social media that I know, and those relationships. So and it's been a great support system for a lot of people through this.
It's so interesting, eh? Like, who would have thought, Afro? Who would have thought, like building in relationships and just coming on social and just being yourself, sharing your story, and not getting caught up in the whole numbers game and how many people did we convert this week, and just being yourself, and who knew that would lead, that was the unlock to growing your
Right.
business on social.
Yeah, like, I don't care. I care about how many conversations I have in a day, not how many followers or how many likes. And, like when you talked about conversion, like, I know other people who are constantly focused on their conversion. But for me, if I don't convert, that doesn't matter to me, because what's for me will not pass by me. And if someone is
Ooh,
meant to be my client, they will book. So I don't worry.
ooh,
If a client doesn't book me, I don't worry. I let them go. They're for someone else.
I
Dropping
love that.
bombs. I'm dropping bombs here, Josh.
If I, I I love that. It's like, if it's for me, it will not pass by me. Ooh,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
like that. And you know what, that's so true, because it's so funny that, too, Arrow, because like I joke, but I'm actually being dead serious. Like, I've probably fired or redirected more potential clients in 2020 than I ever have.
Yeah.
And it really comes back to what you just said, because like I know I have a better understanding of what's not for me, and not even going down that road, because I just know that it's not going to be a good, valuable relationship for both parties involved. So trying to be just real intentional with the people that I'm working with and not working with. What I'm super curious from your standpoint, because like we had a conversation um, around, like, being your authentic self, putting yourself out there, and we were talking specifically about podcasts, and we were talking, and you gave me some information that like just blew my mind. Like, I didn't know about this. I had no idea about this. And then you just kind of like really like enlightened me and dropped a bomb. And I was like, whoa, I did not know this. So could you mind
Yeah.
sharing that information with the people? Because I think it's very interesting. I'd like to unpack it a little bit with you.
So I'm going to start this with the preface that I speak for a living. I'm comfortable in front of the camera. I'm comfortable in front of a mic. I'm comfortable in front of a crowd. That's my superpower. I'm good at it, whatever. I recognize that not everybody is. But when I was doing my podcast, and I sort of paused this year because of COVID, and I'll be picking up again starting soon, I would reach out to vendors, local vendors, who do wedding stuff or in some way are connected to the wedding industry, because I have all different topics. Like they're not necessarily specifically a wedding vendor, but are somehow connected. I always like to find that little outside of the box vendor.
Right.
And so I would reach out to women, mostly women, and say, hey, like, why don't you come be a guest on my podcast? Here's the link. You can check it out, blah, 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 blah. I really love what you do. All the schmoozy things that you say when you want someone to do something. And the response that I would get 90% of the time would be, I'm not good enough to be on your show.
Woo.
I don't sound, yeah.
Not good enough.
Yeah, let's sit in that for a minute. Not good enough. I don't sound good enough. I don't think I'd be a very good guest. I don't think I'm very interesting, blah, 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 blah. And I can
90%? This was 90% response.
Yeah, the reason I have had so few episodes so far of a podcast that's been around for 2 years almost is because of the struggle getting women to come on. And it's not like we're going on the radio. It's not like we're on TV. You're sitting at my dining room table with a mic in front of you with full editorial control, and I can't get them to come on my show and promote their business.
Wow.
Yeah.
My jaw just dropped.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Why?
What, right? And so I don't know. And so I'm going to say the thing that I probably shouldn't say. So I'm an immigrant. So I see like the world from different cultures, right? And so
where did you immigrate from?
I came from Scotland.
Nice.
So I've grown up immersed in another culture while growing up as a Canadian. Nice. And so I see the difference. And I see the difference between Canadians and Americans as well. And it's this thing like, there's this Canadian culture of that it's not good to self-promote, if right I'm like, put me on your show, I want to promote myself. I'm always trying to find ways to get on people's podcasts and on the new, because I want to talk about these things and I want to have these conversations and also promote myself a little, right? And so I always think like, should we be calling it like self-advocacy? Will that make it more palatable to Canadians and women in Southern Ontario? I don't know, but I don't know what it is, because I think, well, how do you promote your product? How do you promote your service? How do you get clients? How do you talk to your clients if you can't talk to me, who's going to edit you to make you sound really good? Because people will say, well, I listened to a few episodes and everyone sounds really good and I'm never going to sound that good. And I'm like, well, by the way, everyone got edited to sound as good as they do.
Right.
I edited all the ums and the thinking moments. And if you say something, you're like, oh, I don't like the way I said that, I take that out.
So this is interesting, Avril. Let's stay on this for a second, because I got some things to unpack here. First of all, self-promotion. Like, for me, and this is just how I view it, like, if you're putting yourself out there, if you're advocating for really the value that you want to bring to others, let's talk about that. Like, that's like, to me, like, when we talk about like self-promotion, it's like, who is putting something out there? There's one thing where you're like putting stuff out there that like glorifies you, versus putting something out there that glorifies the value you're trying to bring to other people. Complete difference. And I would argue that the far majority that are putting themselves out there, that's really the root of what they're doing. They have value that they want to provide, and they just need a platform.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people could look at my socials and say, well, Avril, this is like self-glorification too. But I am my product. So I kind of have to be out there all the time. Yeah.
You are the value.
Then like, if you want the best, hire me, right? Don't waste your time with anyone else, just hire me. But yeah, then people can see that. And I get to tell my story in that way. I get to tell the story of my business that way. But just, there's so many amazing female entrepreneurs that I would love to sit down and chat with, and they just won't. And it's the most bizarre thing. And I don't know, like, if they don't even know how to promote themselves, because what maybe they don't realize is that people aren't buying their product, they're buying the way their product makes people feel. So, and I'm like, what better way to promote your business than to sit down with someone who will give you a platform to talk about why you do what you do, what feelings you want people to have about it, and how you go about making that happen.
Talk about it. So here's an interesting thing, Avril. So I did I did a podcast recently with Maddie Barker. So you probably saw some clips on it out. But I on the podcast, I mentioned to her, I didn't say names, but I mentioned a conversation that I had with somebody about the fact that a lot of women will say no, specifically to being on podcasts. So here's the insight that I got from her. She said that she 100% agreed with that. And for her, one thing that came to mind was that the comfort level with giving advice based on the fear of being wrong or leading somebody astray or it not working out for them, that was high.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was interesting to
I'm
me.
blown away by that, because I think everybody has something of value to say. And, I'm not bringing guests on my show to change the world. I'm trying to promote their business and use their audience and let them use my audience, OPA, other people's audiences. And so, I'm just kind of blown away by that. Absolutely. Yeah. If you want my advice, I'll give it to you. I'll sit and talk all day.
Yeah.
I gotta go with that.
Yeah. So, anyway, I thought it was super interesting, because like for the far majority of people that have been on my podcast have been women.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I don't know what it is, but she just totally like agreed with it right off the bat. And she was a little nervous to come on initially at first, and then mustered up courage, and then she was able to do this. And I was really, happy and proud that she did that. But yeah, she totally agreed, and she said a lot of it was like, yeah, like, the fear of like giving advice and it not working out for the person.
But it might work out for someone else.
Right?
We're not cookie cutter, right? Like the way that someone achieves success might be different than the way someone else achieves the same success. Though the advice that works for one person might not work for someone else. Like that's the thing is I just listened to a coach. She did a 5-day masterclass. And there were things, I sat down with a friend afterwards, and we both watched the same masterclass, and we were talking about what we got from it, and we got totally different things from it. Absolutely, totally different things. And so, not everything you say is going to stick for every single person. And it will resonate with some and resonate with others. And sometimes at different times. I made this comparison of a song that is sort of like an upbeat pop song, and I wasn't really a big fan of it. But then when I heard it years later as a ballad by a totally different person, it stuck with me. It really, like, I felt it, whereas I didn't feel the first version. So sometimes you just need to hear different things at different times in your life, in a different way, in a different tone. But to say that, it might not help just like the one person, well, but there's more than one person listening. There's lots of people listening, and you don't know who out there is listening just for you, to hear the message that you have. And that's why I say, keep talking.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And here's the insight that I actually took away from that. Because one thing that I'm a huge fan of is documenting versus telling, like versus like, I'm the expert, this is what you need to do, like just documenting like what's worked for you or what you've observed, other people do. And I think when people come at it from that perspective, because like the other thing too is like a lot of people, like they're new in the business. Like there are a lot of very fresh entrepreneurs. I mean, including myself, I'm only like 2 years in, right? So I think there might be a lack of confidence there in some regard. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, if you're just documenting, what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
It's your
And you know what?
process.
You don't have to show up with confidence. That's the beauty. Do it scared. That's what bravery is. Do it scared and do it anyway, whether you're scared or not. Because if we only did things that didn't scare us, we'd be so mediocre and
Wow.
boring. We would never achieve the things that we want to achieve in life without taking a chance and being brave and stepping into something that maybe isn't comfortable, but the greatness is waiting on the other side.
Alva, you're dropping bombs today. Did I just hear that come out of your mouth? If people didn't do anything scared, they would just be mediocre.
Yeah, because we would just be doing the same thing we always do, the same thing everyone else is doing. And I always tell people, like, it's okay to let fear be a passenger, but don't let them drive. Fear doesn't get to drive. Just let them, it's okay to bring your fear with you. Let them play the music. Let them work the stereo, but don't let them drive. And it's okay to let fear ride shotgun.
Wow. That's a saying right there.
Maybe I'll get more guests on my podcast now.
So how do we break through the mold then? Because I seriously, like, I've kind of been on a little bit of a rampage in an initiative to really kind of like open people's understanding up to the value of podcasting, period. Like I've heard so many people kind of sit there and dwell about what's not working now that worked before COVID. And I'm like, if you invested that same energy into something that is working now, like podcasting, like how much growth would you experience? So I'm really like, how do we break through that mold? Because I'm really trying to show people that podcasting, there's so much value to it from a relationship building standpoint, from a business development standpoint, and from a content. It's like there's so many beautiful nuances to it. But how do we break that mold? I need help, Ab.
Oh, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. Listen, there's lots of people podcasting. Lots of people get it. I think that we need to get people realizing that they can be guests on podcasts and promote their business. They don't even need to worry about learning Audacity and learning, finding the right mic and learning how to edit and, all that thing and finding the guests and writing the script. They don't need to worry about that. But reach out to people who are podcasting and ask them if you can be a guest on the show and dip your feet in and see what you think. Because not every business is going to have a topic that is podcastable. It makes a great episode and could be an episode on many different styles and types of podcasts around the world, but it's not necessarily something you can build a podcast around. And that's okay. Like I know business people who, if you make candles, there's only so much talking about candles you could do. You're not going to have a 100-episode podcast about it. But in my case, I didn't want to sit and talk about weddings and just be me going yip, 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 for an hour a day. I wanted to hear what other people had to say about weddings and their experience getting there and how that all worked. So that's why I invite people on that. And I do very little of the talking, strangely enough. I actually don't do that much talking on my own show, but it's, and I think we just need to keep talking about it. We need to let people know it's a good thing. You've got your Instagram, you've got your Facebook, you've got your website, you've got your mailing list, blah, 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 blah. Have a podcast or have a blog. Pick one and run with it. In my case, I have both because they both benefit my business. But, I think it's just something we've got to keep telling people. I've had guests that I've invited on my show and they're like, what's a podcast? I'm like,
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's true though. It's true. Listen, I want to debunk something right now because
Yeah.
I did a little bit of a survey via content on our page, and it was really trying to like get a a little bit of insight into like why people who are interested in having a podcast of their own, why they're not doing it. And the far majority of them either said they didn't know how to get started or they didn't have time. Now, the getting started point, and it's so interesting because like you mentioned about like, you know, you don't have to have your own podcast, you can be a guest. I love that as a strategy to start. Baby steps, right? The other thing is
Yeah,
like,
other people's audiences. Be a guest blogger, be a guest on the podcast, do a takeover of social media, anything like that. Use other people's audiences.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other thing is like, so the time thing is the thing that really gets me because when like just from a this is a it's as much a business discussion I'm observing than it is a discussion about like ways to market things like how are we spending our time in our business, because like I'm learning and seeing that it's so important to take time to work on your business as opposed to always working in the business. So when I'm podcasting, I consider that working on the business.
Yes, absolutely. And people, like when I first started, I didn't know anything. I didn't know where to start. And I knew people who had podcasts. So I asked them for some help. I reached out to my community and said, hey, I want to do this, no competition, totally different theme. Will you help me? And someone came over to my house one day and sat down for a couple hours and helped me and showed me how to do everything. And we got the whole thing up and running.
Wow.
So, and actually at the same time, because I was like, I didn't know how to do a WordPress website, and I needed a website to have my podcast because I wanted it like on my website as well as iTunes and Spotify. So I had to do all of that at the same time. I went to my community and asked for help, and people showed up to help. And it was easy. It was so easy from there because it's like one of those things, once you know how to do something, it's super easy.
Yeah,
And there's lots of tutorials. Like I use Audacity for my podcast, and
nice.
there's lots of tutorials. There's a guy on YouTube who literally will step by step take you through the entire process of adding in music, doing your intro, how to edit, how to cut, how to merge, how to do all these different things. And so within a few hours, I had learned from start to finish how to put a podcast episode together. It's that
Beautiful.
easy. Yeah. And when people say they don't have the time, I tend to find those are the same people who just spent 10 hours straight watching The Crown. Do you know what I mean? No offense to those people, but you had the time and you chose to not spend it building your business. And I get it. Self-care, time off, relaxation is important. But, for me, I would work for an hour and then watch TV for an hour and then work for an hour and watch TV for an hour. And I would, intersperse it throughout my life as opposed to committing an entire day to watching TV. And
I'm
if
so
that's what
glad
people
you
want to
said
do,
that. I'm so
I know I'm
glad
gonna
you
get
said
hate
that.
mail now.
No, no,
And,
no,
and I,
but listen, and here's where I'm coming from. Like, I think there's nothing wrong if you want to go and watch The Crown for 12 hours. Just
yeah,
don't complain when your business isn't growing because you're not using your time strategically to impact that.
yeah, exactly. And getting a new business off the ground, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time and sacrifices. It's not easy. You have to be dedicated to that. And if it's not growing as fast or as big as you want it to, get off the TV, turn Netflix off, and focus entirely on your business, even for 3 hours. Give it 3 hours straight of solid dedication for your website, for your blog, for your socials, whatever it is that you do to promote your business, because doing the business is actually the smallest part these days. Like me
Mm,
actually like working with the couples and doing the ceremonies is actually the smallest part of my business because it's a bit like clockwork right now at this point. But doing all the promotion and getting myself out there and building community, that takes a lot of work. And eventually you kind of get over the hump, and then now it's all just that part will run like clockwork as well.
So
But it does take the dedication.
Yeah. I just want to make this connection for people because I think it's going to bring value. Like, because like COVID obviously rocked everybody's world, and I think some people really used that time strategically. They didn't do things like dwell. They didn't do things like just kind of like sit there forever and didn't make any sort of change or pivot or adapted or anything. So I want to make this connection because obviously it's benefited you, and I want this to benefit other people as well. And so the connection to me is this, and I want you to add and give your piece to it. COVID happened. We all of a sudden realized, okay, business has stopped. What do we do in the meantime? Right? So it's like, because everybody's like, this is going to last for however long. What do we do in the meantime? So then it became, for some people like yourself, oh, I need to connect. I need to reach out. I need to engage. I need to keep building my brand and keep putting myself out there, despite what's going on.
Yeah.
Translate to now, you just had what, your biggest year?
Yeah. And next year will be even bigger.
Wow. That's the thing I want to connect for people. Like it's really not overcomplicated.
No.
It's really not.
The thing that I think a lot of people don't realize or maybe forget is that every person on social media, whether it's a social media manager behind a brand or the business owner, or it's a personal account, every single like, every single comment, every single follow is a heartbeat. And there's a person behind that. And if you connect with that person, your business will easily grow. And that's all I did. I sat on my couch doing social media. I was on Instagram all day long, just liking posts, commenting on posts, connecting with people. And it has just grown and grown and grown. And
Wow.
The people who have done the same thing, I've watched their businesses grow and grow and grow. I know many businesses this year who've done more business than they ever have. I've watched people, sorry, there's my dog. Yeah. He's like, oh, it's nap time, mommy. I've watched people while everybody else just laid down and did nothing. And it's because they saw what people needed and they provided it.
Wow.
And it's as simple as that. It is really that simple. Connect with your community. I don't sell anything. I don't slide into people's DMs saying, hey, do you want to hire me for your what? No. I just like their posts. I just comment and say, wow, your hair looks beautiful. I build those connections, and I look at every single person. Here's my business secret now, my shady business secret. I look at every single person as $1,000, because even if they don't hire me, even if they're not planning a wedding, or if they don't need my services or anything, they're going to refer $1,000 worth of business to me. Just solely based on the relationship that we have, where I didn't sell a thing, didn't promote anything, was just like, hey, I really love your products, or hey, this is a great picture, whatever. Just come up with things to say on people's Instagrams and Facebooks and things like that. And the connections will build.
I love that.
And it's so simple. It's so incredibly simple, especially right now when we are all craving connection. We're all craving the missing relationships that we have. Because, for so many people, like if your friends are all over the place, you can't see them because of COVID and, not being able to go to different cities and things like that. This is what people are craving. And all I did, didn't do it intentionally. It's just a natural thing for me. But it's sort of looking back now, I created connection. And here I am.
You just said something so profound that I'm still thinking about.
Oh, Josh, you're frozen.
Am I frozen?
Okay, maybe you were just in shock.
Maybe. No, but it's so profound what you said. You said behind every person that likes, follows, comments is a heartbeat. And I think that's so important to say and to mention, because you're right. Like, it's bringing it back to the fact that, like, there's people behind these channels.
Yeah.
Like real people with stories. And that has been a huge unlock for us, is just remembering that and then leveraging that, because everybody's got a story. Everybody's got, you know, a story to tell, and it's like, how can I get to know those people better?
Mm-hmm.
How can I understand them better, and make friends?
Yeah. I have so many friends that I met on Instagram. That, you know, we would like each other's posts, and then we would be like, you know, commenting and then messaging, just like, oh my gosh, I love your story. You know, everybody responds to your stories and things like that. And then it'd be like, okay, let's go for lunch. Let's meet and hang out. And there's so many people that I have that kind of relationship with. And you know what, when you said, you know, about everybody has a story, everyone has a story that would break your heart. You know, every single person has a story that would bring you to your knees. And I think that if we remember that and lead with compassion and, you know, make people feel seen. I remember years and years and years ago when Oprah was on, and she said, like, one of the most important things in life is being seen. And how often do you like someone's post and you get nothing in return, as though you weren't seen? And so when someone likes my post, a new person, and I've never seen their account before, I will go and I'll like 10 or 15 of their posts. Like, yes, I see you. I acknowledge you. I honor you. You know what I mean? And they feel great. You know what I mean? Give the warm fuzzies all over everybody. And if you just spread love, like peanut butter, you will always go right. You'll never go wrong.
Avril, how did you know the peanut butter was like one of my favorite things on the planet Earth? Come on now.
I don't know. I can see right through you, Josh.
Peanut butter cookies? Come on. I love it.
I do love those Nutter Butters. Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, they didn't pay me to say that. I shouldn't have said that.
You better get that bag, girl.
Not cuddle on that one.
Well, listen, Avril, this has been such a fruitful conversation. Can I just say thank you? Thank you for just being unapologetic, first and foremost, about who you are, what you represent, and just being just a force to be reckoned with. You are making major shifts in the social world, and oh my goodness, the attitude and the execution matching each other. Super, super impressed. I've watched you, obviously been a fan of yours for a while, and it's just such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, and I'm super, super excited that you joined.
Thank you so much. My heart is about to burst out of my chest right now. Thank you so much. I love talking with you. You always ask the most interesting questions, and I love your feed. I love what you do as well. I think we're just it's like a little love fest that we have here. And I want to get in on your next wedding photo shoot there, buddy.
That's gonna happen. That's for sure gonna happen. Absolutely.
But see, did you see that conversation where I said, hey, no one remembers the officiant when they're doing styled shoots? The company got in touch with me within seconds and said, come be on our next shoot.
Boom. There you go.
As easy as that.
There you go.
That's it. Fortune favors the bold.
I love it. Avril, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Josh. Have an amazing day.